Pope Francis really shocked the world in the last couple of days. He made a startling announcement, at least what I thought. Pope Francis said Monday that he will not judge gays and lesbians, including gay priests. Let's go to that clip.
Good morning, Natalie. You thought that was extraordinary. On his way back to Rome, the Pope spoke to reporters for an hour and 20 minutes in an unprecedented press conference, talking about a wide range of issues. He said he had never met anybody in the Vatican that had gay on their business card. And he said, if someone is gay and they are searching for the Lord, who am I to judge?
Quite a startling statement from the Pope, and he was on his way back to Rome from Brazil when he made that statement. I have to tell you, I've talked to a number of Catholics, at least even within my own family. I was born a Roman Catholic. They were really surprised. Some applauded it, some were against it. Let's find out from somebody who knows a lot more about it than I do, and that's Bill Donohue. He's the president of the Catholic League, and he joins us by phone. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Dave.
Bill, you've seen the news. Was it a startling announcement, or am I making too much of this?
Well, technically speaking, there was nothing startling about it. On the other hand, I can understand why people are.
Well, we can end the segment right there, Bill. There was nothing startling about it. We could go on. We could talk sports. I'm only kidding, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, in terms of substance, there's nothing startling about it. In terms of style, there was a profound difference. Let me just take the first part. The Catholic Church has always taught that homosexuals and heterosexuals are equal in the eyes of God and in the eyes of the Catholic Church. They possess equal human dignity, and it is wrong to bash people whether they're gay or straight. It is also said that homosexuality, practicing homosexuals, along with premarital sex, extramarital sex, or adultery, these are sinful behaviors. But the status of being gay, no, there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, as he said, a lot of people have left out and who are seeking the Lord and goodwill. There's a lot of people.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, Bill. But if somebody is a gay individual, a heterosexual, a homosexual,
right,
and they are gay, is it what happens when they commit the act? Do they fall out of the grace of God at that point, or are they still okay?
Yeah, they have the exact same status of a heterosexual. Sexual orientation, according to the Catholic Church, is morally irrelevant. It didn't begin with Francis on the plane. The Catholic Church has always taught that that one sexual orientation is morally irrelevant. Now, if you're straight and you're having an adulterous affair, that's a problem. If you're a homosexual and you're sexually active, that's a problem. But the status of being a homosexual or the status of being a heterosexual is basically a non-starter. It means nothing.
So a monogamous relationship, if you're a homosexual, is perfectly acceptable to the Catholic Church.
Catholic Church teaches that the only sexual expression that is morally acceptable is between a man and a woman in the institution of marriage.
But that's where it gets very, very confusing, Bill, because you're making that one statement, and then on the other hand, it's okay to be a homosexual. I mean, it's one way or the other.
No, if you say a person is straight and he is engaged in an adulterous relationship, like
okay, but that's different than what I'm saying right now. I'm confused. You talk. You're the expert.
Well, no. What I'm simply saying is that whether you happen to be inclined toward people of the same sex or the opposite sex is morally irrelevant. If, however, you're engaged in sexual practices outside of the institution of marriage, then that is sinful behavior.
The rhetoric that I'm hearing from the Catholic Church at this point, to me, as a longtime Catholic, it seems to have changed dramatically. You say that it's not a big deal. You're saying the style is maybe a big deal. It's very new to me, and it wasn't that way certainly when I grew up. It was at least an implied sin. And I guess my question and what I'm trying to lead up to, there seems to be a changing face for the Catholic Church, and I'm just wondering, we seem to be having a changing face within the United States. The Supreme Court is ruled on certain issues. Now it's over to the states. One by one, state by state, gay marriage is going to be accepted. Now, could there ever be a time within the Catholic community where you would accept a gay marriage?
That will never happen any more than will happen.
Why would that? Why is that?
Well, because there's only two people in the history of the world who could ever create a family, and that's one man and one woman. The purpose of marriage is procreation, period. That idea, by the way, comes from.
But what do you say to a
couple?
What do you say to a couple that can't have a child?
Well, they certainly are. They're not acting sinfully. No one's ever made that argument. What we're saying is that they are ready substitutes. If something happens to parents who have children and they get killed or they get divorced or something dramatic happens to them, they have ready substitutes. You can have the man takes the role of the father, the woman takes the role of the mother.
It's still, I guess the issue
By the way, Dave, let's keep in mind, this idea is not a freak. We got this idea of marriage being functionally related to the family and morally so from our Jewish brothers and sisters. That idea comes out of Judaism. Muslims believe the same thing. Indeed, all world religions are either opposed to same-sex marriage or they're agnostic, which is to say they don't say anything about it. You can't name for me a single religion in the history of the world, any major religion certainly, which has ever said that it's okay for two men to get married. This idea is one of the most bizarre ideas in history. The fact that we have 4 or 5 states, and about 37, by the way, which have their own state constitutions against gay marriage. We get caught up in this wave of thinking.
Well, I'm wondering if that wave of thinking is actually it invaded the Catholic Church. But let me go to another issue because it also brings us, to priests. Now, what if a priest is a homosexual?
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Okay.
Absolutely nothing wrong with it.
All right, as long as he's celibate.
That's exactly the point.
So that's the point here. So you can be a homosexual as long as you're celibate. That's where you cross the line. I got one last thing before I let you go, and this is for me. It has nothing to do with the topic that we're talking about. You're familiar with indulgences, correct?
Sure.
And when I grew up, and I've always wanted to, now I've got an expert on air, and I can finally find out the answer because it really threw me off when I was a kid. I remember reading these indulgences, and indulgences were prayers that I found somewhere in the Bible. And if I understand it correctly, you said an indulgence, which was a prayer, and that was good to help get somebody out of purgatory. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
All right. Here's my question. I remember reading in the Bible, or at least the manuscript that I had, where I had an indulgence prayer, and it would say, at the bottom of the prayer, it would say, this prayer is worth 7 years, 6 months out of purgatory. Who came up with that number?
I'm laughing because, I'm not going to lie to you and say Bill Donohue knows everything about it. I have no idea where that
That's what I want to know. It drove me nuts for years.
Dave, remember, there are man-made rules in the Catholic Church, which are those rules such as celibacy. The first 1,000 years it was optional whether you wanted to get married or not. They could change that tomorrow.
That might have been a better way to go.
but then there's what's called dogma, such as 3 persons in one, all right, the Blessed Trinity. That's not something that's man-made. That's found in Scripture. That which is taught by Jesus cannot be changed. But that which is not taught by Jesus, which is a house rule like no meat on Friday.
I have a feeling Jesus Christ did not come up with 7 years, 6 months. It's been fun talking to you, Bill. Thank you so much.
I couldn't agree with you more. I still want to find out who that guy was.
That's what I want to know, too. We'll have you back, and you can tell us. I want you to go out and research it. Thank you.